afternoon and welcome to LVS Perspectives number 18, an audience with Will Manning. Wow, we're in for a treat. So we welcome back Will Manning, Capital Radio DJ, chart show host on a Sunday, ex-pupil of LVS. Will, welcome to LVS. Welcome back.
Thank you. You're making me blush.
Make you blush? Oh, you always were quite shy and quiet in school and such a lovely young man, so I'm going to make you blush even more. So Will, ex-LVS pupil, and you were here in the senior school from year 7 to 11.
Yeah.
And you started DJing from such an early age, didn't you? How old were you?
Yeah, I did my first gig when I was 10. My first paid DJ gig when I was 10 with, I think, an audience of about 20 people who didn't actually care.
All right, where was it?
So it was my mum. My mum was working at a school and they needed someone to basically play music whilst the kids messed around. And I was like, yeah, I'll do it. I've got a CD player, so I'll give this a go. And me and my friend, we got paid £40. And at the age of 10, I was like, this is insane. I'm going to be a millionaire if I carry this on. So I just carried on doing it.
Brilliant. So how did you get into DJing? What inspired you?
So it was basically from listening to a lot of radio in the car and my dad being a drum player. So he would have a drum kit in the house and he taught me how to learn the drums as well. So we'd listen to music all the time. And then listening to music on the school run when my mum would drop me at school, we'd have Capital on, we'd have Kiss on, and I would just impersonate the radio presenters and try and talk up to vocal. So just before the singer starts singing with the introduction of the song, I would practice that when the DJ would on the radio. And I just became obsessed with pop music and how radio worked. And the thought of doing that as a job was kind of mind-blowing that people would get paid to do that. So I think before the age of 10, that interest was there, before the gig.
So obviously a passion from an early age that you've had all through your career and, you know, to drive you forward. So you had your first gig at 10. So where did it go from then? What sort of things were you doing with your DJing?
So I did the school fete thing, if you want to call it that. And then word of mouth kind of spread in the local area about me being able to play songs, which is essentially what it was at the time, because I didn't have any equipment. I didn't have decks or anything like that. It literally was just some very primitive equipment that I had. But my mum's friends would ask if I would be interested in doing their kids' party. And obviously the answer was yes. And word of mouth just kind of spread from there, really. And I would end up doing 16-year-olds' birthdays and 18-year-olds' birthdays at the age of 12 and 13. And with every gig, I would use that money to buy more equipment. So I'd start off with 2 disco lights, and then I'd buy another one, and I'd buy more advanced speakers, and then, goal posts that your lights could go on. And I'd just sort of upgrade as I went along. And my dad, bless him, would have to drive me around in his car at weekends and set all the stuff up and wait in the car park and pack it all down for me. But it was so much fun. And I did a lot of kids' parties for LV as well. A lot of the students sort of below me, actually, I would do their 16th party. It was a lot of fun.
Yeah, and funny enough, when many staff have contacted me today saying, oh, I remember Will, and I remember the discos he did here. And then
Really?
You're saying, yeah, they still remember. There's still people here that when you were here as well. So Mrs. Verdi remembers you, and Mrs. Chappell was saying this morning that she remembers you.
Yeah.
So there's still a lot of people here who do remember you when you were in school. So going back to your school years, because we had a little chat yesterday and we were on a bit of a laugh about what it was like when you were in school. Tell us about your years at LVS.
My years at LVS, and I'm not just saying this, by the way, so students don't eye roll this. They honestly were the best times. The best times. And you asked me yesterday why that was. And the answer was basically the environment is like no other school. Because I've been to quite a few schools before LV. And it was like no other school I'd ever been to. I think you're so lucky to have the facilities you've got. The field, I mean, I don't know if this was I was little, but the field in my head was huge. You had a lake, the street was amazing. Like the thought of hanging out with your friends at lunchtime by all the lockers was such a cool idea. I just had the best times. I think all the best times were in that hour's break that we had at lunch. And they were where the amazing memories were made with my friends. And then I was so into my drama, which is actually, I believe, got me to where I am now. Thanks to, I think, Mr. Guara at the time, who taught me drama, and doing shows like South Pacific in 2007. They are where my memories are really, really fond of my time at LV. just memories for life. I still think about it all the time. It's quite sad. So maybe I should let it go, but
No.
I had such a good time, and great trips as well, and great teachers. Like I remember doing a Spanish trip to Madrid. Just the best time. Really loved it.
Yeah, no, don't ever let those memories go. I mean, that's what we say. If you have a happy education, it's with you forever, isn't it? Really
Yeah,
good
for
memories.
sure.
And we were laughing about South Pacific and the things that used to get up to in the
Yeah,
sides
yeah,
there, and all the friendships that you made and the laughter that we used to have as well. Because being director of music back then, obviously, I know exactly what you're saying, and it's still living and breathing in LVS with all the productions and things. It's one thing that we, along with sport, we're fantastic at, and it is
yeah.
brilliant. And you were a judge for Battle of the Bands at least once, weren't you?
Yeah, I think I got invited back twice, which again was like so cool. I don't, like any excuse to come back to LV because I've still got a friend who lives nearby, and every time I drive past, I'm like, oh, I just really want to go in and like say hi and visit. Don't want to be weird. Like, get over it. Will stop hanging on. But yeah, I any excuse to go back and say hi. I absolutely loved it because I think when you're at school, all you really want to do is for it to end. Normally, you're like, I can't wait to just grow up and leave school, but I would say if you're at LV, which obviously you are if you're watching this, like make the most of it because you won't get that time again. It's very special.
And you left LVS at the end of your GCSEs.
Yeah.
And you went to Amersham College, but you came back for a day, didn't you?
Came back for a day because I really didn't enjoy the college I was at. I just remember I kept saying to my mum, I was like, it's just not LVS. It's like, why don't you go back for a day and see what it's like? So I remember I had a day being a sixth former there, but a lot of my really good friends had moved. So I just thought it might be a bit weird. It might ruin the memory that I have if I come back fully.
And from Amersham College, where you went afterwards, you went on to university. This is really interesting. So what subjects did you study at sixth form and what did you study at university?
Oh, sixth form. You did ask me this yesterday and I had the answer now. Okay, so I studied media, I did film, sociology and English language. Did very well in media, did very well in film, didn't do well in sociology at all. I think I got a D in that, which was not great. And then I went on to study radio at University of Birmingham and then transferred to Westminster University to also study radio with some other modules on the side.
Yeah. What's really interesting that you went to Birmingham and you didn't like it and you were brave enough, and this is often really hard for students, is to know when it's not right for you and getting out, and you did the right thing. So well done. Any advice there with students, if they find themselves in the wrong place or the wrong course, what would you say?
Yeah, I think what I found is that there's so much pressure on university, not just from school or your parents, but from your friends as well. Because I was finding that my friends were having the time of their lives, because you're sold a dream with uni. It's the best time of your life. You'll make your friends for life. This is where you really sort of learn who you are and you'll leave a better person. I had the complete opposite experience and I found it really, really hard to communicate that to my friends because they just couldn't relate to what I was going through. So I had to just accept that, okay, they're having a great time, but I'm allowed to not be. And that's completely okay. Everybody's going to have a completely different university experience. So if you do go to uni and it's not for you, or you're just not feeling the city, or you haven't made your friends, or the course isn't right, that's completely fine. Like, that's not the end of it. You can just transfer. You can start again. My sister did exactly the same. She was miserable at her university. She moved on. She's much happier now. She's got the job she wants to do. Completely the same for me. So it's not the end of the world. And I think it's easy to compare to your friends. But I think a lot of people do struggle with uni. It's just not spoken about as much as it probably should be.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think it's becoming more common these days as well. So did you get a direct transfer or did you have to withdraw and apply again? What did you do?
So, yeah, I think it was a direct transfer. Yeah, because I started the second year, so I could just join straight in. So it just, the modules I'd done at Birmingham could transfer over. So I was really lucky with that. But I was fully prepared to start again, and that would have been fine too.
Brilliant. And so while you were still at school, you had your first big break when you were 15, didn't you?
Yes. So from my DJing, I had a video on my Facebook page of me, like, it sounds weird, scratching in my bedroom, like on the decks. I was doing my what's called turntablism. And a guy from the BBC saw that video and messaged me. And I showed my dad, and he was, rightly so, a little bit like, do you know who this man is? Who's this stranger messaging you on Facebook, on the internet? And we did a background search. We looked up his LinkedIn, and it was all legit. He was a producer for the BBC. So I messaged him, and because he'd asked me if I wanted to work at the BBC as a presenter. So I was like, wow, absolutely. Let's meet up. We met up. I took my dad along with me, and he offered to do some piloting and some demos for Radio 1, because they were looking for people to fill in when presenters were on holiday or sick, or stuff like that. So we developed a demo for about 6 months, put it forward to Radio 1, and then their sister station 1Extra heard it and said, we'd like to take Will on as our deputising guy, the guy that would fill in. And I did that for about a year and a half, until I think they realised that I was actually not ready, which at the time was crushing, but it worked out in the end. But yeah, that was my first break when I was 15, straight into the deep end on a national platform for the BBC.
That is quite incredible. Really well done. And I think your parents always have pushed your education as well, haven't they? Have that plan B. Do you want to tell us a little bit, what the ethos there was within your family?
Yeah, completely. And actually, I was thinking about this morning. I actually remember the moment that I thought, okay, these GCSEs really do matter. I was sat in, I don't know if it's the same now, but it was the upstairs drama room in the street where we would do some smaller exams. And I went in with the mentality of, I don't need these exams. I'm going to be on the radio one day. And then in the back of my head, I remember my parents saying to me, just get the bit of paper, because my parents didn't really understand the media industry. They thought it was fickle, which it absolutely is. It's an industry that can love you and then hate you the next minute. It's just not stable. So they were like, just go and get the bit of paper, do what you need to do, get through these exams, work as hard as you possibly can. And then at least you've done your best, and at least you've got that bit of paper. If you need the backup, you've got it. So I thought, actually, I'm going to do this for my parents, if nothing else. And, I got through my GCSEs. I went on and did my A-levels. I did exactly the same for uni. I thought, this is a backup in case I need it. Applied myself at uni, and I got everything I needed to get to have the foundation in case things go wrong later on in life, which so far they haven't. But it's just nice to have that.
And we talk about resilience now, and obviously the resilience you've had to show. In the fact is, you had your stuffing knocked out of you at 15, 16, but you came back. Tell us about your persistence to get ahead.
Yeah, well, it was the knockback that it crushed me, and I really thought that my radio career was over before it had even started. And that's the thing. My friends and peers in the industry were like, I was 16 at this point. They're like, you are 16. How can you say your career is over when most people can't even begin to think about what they're going to do for the rest of their adult life? Most adults don't even know what they're going to do for the rest of their adult life. So it kind of took a bit of a reality check. Okay, right, I am only 16. This is just one setback. Just roll with it. And I did have to call quite a few people that I'd met at the BBC and along the way in the industry to just have a bit of reassurance that it was going to be okay, and that they'd also had knockbacks along the way, because obviously I hadn't experienced it before. So I wasn't sure if this was normal. Was this a personal attack, or was this just how the industry worked? And once I was kind of assured that, no, this is just how it is in real life, I was like, okay, I'll pick myself back up, back to the self-belief that I had back when I was 10, and let's crack on and let's see what comes next. And luckily it all worked out. But self-belief is number one. And I can apply that to literally everything I've done in my whole career. Going back to being at LV, we used to have Kiss on the school bus, because I used to get the bus into school. And I would probably quite cockily say to people on the bus that one day that'll be me doing that show. And rightly so, people would be like, yeah, whatever. But them saying, yeah, whatever, made me want to prove them wrong. So the self-belief really sort of drove me through the whole thing.
So your next big break was with Kiss, wasn't it?
Yeah. So I got to Kiss, yeah.
Yeah. How did that happen? What did you do?
So I managed to apply for work experience in 2008, so a year after I left LV. And that was by hounding people on MySpace, when MySpace was a thing before Facebook, which I'm not saying is the right way to do it, but I had to find an in. So I had to find some form of in to this building that was Kiss. So I did work experience, and that was all well and good. I think I did 2 weeks there and got some great experience, met some great people, and made a note of their names, made a note of their email addresses, and, said I'd keep in touch. And then a year later, I saw an advert online for a station called The Hits Radio, which was owned by Bauer, and that's the same company that owns Kiss. So I applied for this job, I got the job, and luckily for me, I would have to go into that building where Kiss was to record this show. So I knew it was just down the corridor. So I went to go and introduce myself again to the boss of KISS and the staff that I'd worked with the year before. Said, hey, don't know if you remember me. I was here last year doing work experience. I'm now just down the corridor recording for your sister station. Do you want to hear my stuff? And they thankfully said yes. They liked what they heard. And then they offered me a cover shift at the weekend. And then they offered me 2 weekend shows going forward. And then that developed to the evening show. I used to cover the breakfast show, did the drive show. And then I was at KISS for 3.5 years.
That's fantastic. And then you were poached, weren't you?
Yes. And then after 3.5 years, I got a phone call from a mysterious number. This was 10 minutes before I used to do the evening show. So I'd start at 7 p.m. At 6:50, I remember this so well. At 6:50, I got a phone call. I wouldn't normally pick up unknown numbers, but I was like, might be a boss that I don't know about the number. So I picked it up and they said, hello, it's Mike Osborne from Global. I don't have a clue what Global was. So I hung up. And then he texted me saying, Google my name. I work for Richard Park. So I Googled his name and he was a very, very, very important person at Global where I now work. So I called him back after my show. So I'm very, very sorry about that. What would you like to talk about? And he basically wanted to talk about me leaving KISS and going to the capital to do a show. So it took about 7 months of contract negotiations, but we finally got there. They offered me the show that I really wanted, and I handed in my notice at KISS. And after 3 months off, joined to do London Drive at Capital.
Brilliant. When was that? What year was that you went to Capital?
I think 2016. 2016, yeah. I joined Capital. Yeah, and I went straight into London Drive, and I did that for I think 2 years, and then 2018, they offered me the chart show and to move to a national show doing mid-mornings, which I'm doing now.
I can remember driving out of London on the elevated section, just minding my own, listening to the radio. I thought, I recognise that voice. And there you were. It's fantastic, amazing achievement. So you've been there quite a while. And so that day that you got that phone call, you then had to go and do your show. How did you manage to keep your attention, having just got that call?
To be honest, I'd clocked out. As soon as I'd heard that Capital wanted me, I was like, to be honest, I was really done at KISS at that point anyway. I wasn't having the best of times in the last 6 months or so. And I was kind of ready for a new challenge and to move on and to sort of see where I could take myself as a presenter elsewhere. So when I got that phone call, I kind of had clocked out before I'd handed in my notice at KISS. It's really exciting. It's also very flattering and very reassuring to know that the biggest commercial radio station possibly in the world would actually like to have me as talent on their books. So yeah, when I think back to 10-year-old me, it's kind of a wow, you did it moment, really.
So give us an example. What is it to be a day in the life of Will Manning? The prep for your show, what does it entail? Tell us.
Well, I wake up. So my show starts at 10. So my alarm goes off at 7. And then I snooze for a good 20 minutes. And then I get to the office about 8:30 and I will look through stories of the day. I've got my producer who will produce the majority of the show, but I'll look for what I can bring to it as well. I'll look through the music I'm playing because the music's all set out by the music team. So we get no say in the songs. So they're all in an order and we just have a look at what we can say in between those songs. And then I'll spend a good 50 minutes pre-recording quite a lot of it. And that's just so that everything that goes out is to the best quality and the best standard it can be. I'll do some links live, but the majority of it is recorded either before the show or as I go during the show, just so it can sound the best it can be. And then I'm on till 1, and you can adapt to things happening. Like we gave away £15,000 literally an hour ago, and things that I had planned can change off the back of that. So I'll do my show and I'll finish about 1 p.m. and then we'll have like a debrief, and then I might go on. I mean, in non-COVID times, I'd go on and maybe do a voiceover for a brand that afternoon, or go and film a brand video, or maybe go to an audition, or just have an afternoon of meetings. It's really dependent on the day and what's going on, but it's quite exciting. There's always something going on.
Yeah, a really exciting life as well. So you must get a lot of showbiz goss then, do you? The gossip on the street?
Yeah. Well, with the chart show, I get to interview basically everybody. So I don't think there's one person, I mean, apart from like Jay-Z and Beyonce and Kanye West, that I haven't spoken to yet. So that's really exciting. And a lot of them are done in the week before the show as well. So often I'm sat right here at like 5 a.m. because I do it in LA time. speaking to the biggest people in the world. And I have to do that probably about 2 or 3 times a week, get up at 5 a.m. to speak to people for about 10 minutes here. And we pre-record all those interviews so they're ready to go for the chart show on Sunday.
So it's quite a glamorous life.
Can be. It can be. I mean, when COVID wasn't a thing and there was a lot of parties, there's a lot of good events to go to and you meet a lot of cool people. Yeah, it's cool.
Can it be lonely at times?
It absolutely can. Yeah, 1000%. This is not an industry you're taught about, and it's one you have to figure out for yourself. And I think when you look at it, you think everybody's got so many friends, everybody's having the time of their lives. But actually, I mean, I live in this flat on my own in West London, and sometimes you come back from an event and you're just feeling a little bit empty after it all. Not to get really deep here, but you can feel like, oh, what did I really gain from that? It was just a room full of people trying to be cooler than somebody else, you know, and they're looking over their shoulders ready for the next cool person to talk to. And sometimes, yeah, you don't really get the kick that you think you will from those kind of things. And also, you can have the days where you just don't believe in yourself either. There's days where you think, am I really cut out for this? Do I really want to keep on persevering? But you just have to remember that you've got this far. Who knows what's going to come next? That's what I remember.
And I think it's quite natural to have those self-doubts. I think everybody has them as well. But, you know, no way should you have them. You're doing amazingly. And just it's interesting there, because it just went through my mind about something we talked about yesterday. You saying you live there on your own and you feel quite lonely. When we put out for questions, I said to you, the only questions I had coming through were, has Will got a girlfriend? And how can I get a date with him? We won't go there. We're not going to pry.
No, I don't have a girlfriend.
So we're getting some questions coming through on the chat here. So if you've got any questions for Will, then please bring them through. But before I start my question, because you know, I've got the audience here. I'm in a peak position here. So TV, I can see you being on TV. Is that the next step?
Yeah, that is the next step. I'm doing a lot of writing at the moment for ITV2. So I would go in to ITV2 and pitch various shows, game shows, panel shows, comedy shows. Nearly got one greenlit 2 years ago, really, really close to getting it made. So again, perseverance. I'm learning that skill in a whole new sector now. I'm learning how to, you know, take the punches and pick myself back up. Because, for example, that TV show we talked about for a good 4 months at ITV, and it was really, really close to getting commissioned. And then I remember being in the gym one day, checking my emails and just getting an email from a commissioner saying it was A or B, and we went with B. And you just have to go, all right, that was 4 months of my life. Wasn't meant to be. Let's move on to the next one. So that's really interesting with the writing. And then me as an actual person on the TV myself, I did my first ITV2 appearance last October on a panel show. We've got some potential exciting things happening this year as well. It's it's really, really exciting. TV is a whole new world that I'm really excited and desperate to get into. It's just very, very difficult.
No doubt you're going to get there. And I say, if those young presenters out there should feel very threatened with you coming on the market, Will, I can tell you now, we're all rooting for you. So any advice, before I pass on to the questions, any advice you give anybody either following a passion or following in the radio industry, what is your advice to them? Yeah,
it actually just goes back to self-belief. Because I've always said it, if you don't believe in yourself, no one else will. And I've met so many people throughout, I've been in radio 13 years now. And obviously we get work experience in and we get internships in. And I like to speak to them and just say, what is it you want to do and how do you want to do it? And often they don't really know and they're a bit unsure. I'm like, you need to present yourself in the best possible way. It's like going to a job interview. If you go in like shoulders that, you know, hunched over, you're not presenting yourself in the right way, someone's going to look at you and go, not a chance. But if you go in shoulders back, not in a cocky way, but kind of like, you need me, I'm really, really good at this, and this is why, then you're going to get pretty far. Obviously, you have to be good at what you do. That's the number one thing. But self-belief will carry you through the whole way, and you just have to keep believing that you are good at this, and you'll get there. So I'd say that's the number one thing. The talent to actually do it is another one. There are people who can't cut through, and it's really ruthless now. The radio industry is getting smaller and smaller. Everything's getting national. The smaller stations in the regions are getting shut down, and it's all coming from London. So it's super, super competitive. But even more reason, if you're really passionate about it, just to persevere and, you know, get on with it and see what happens.
Brilliant. Our first question was about two children who are doing a media in school. And one of
Okay.
them is, I'm just reading the top of this, it says, what advice would you give to my two kids, both wanting to follow a path in media? One now at uni, one in year 12. It seems a tough industry. You've just alluded to that as well. And I think you've probably answered the question about keeping going.
Yeah.
Any other advice there? You've probably answered that one.
It's really tough. I mean, it completely depends what in the media they want to do. But I would say making contacts is so important. When I think back to my work experience at KISS, if I hadn't made that contact with the boss, when I'd gone in to record that radio show and I walked down the corridor, he would have had no idea who I was and probably wouldn't have given me the chance to do a show on KISS. So making those contacts is super important, and just staying in touch, updating them on what you're doing. If you've written an article, send that article to them, just say, hey, what do you think to this? Would love your thoughts. There's a real fine line between pestering people and, being polite about it. But if you get it right, it can work. Like, people send me their demos all the time. And if it's a well-written email, I will happily carry on reading and click through to their demo and listen through to it. And I will happily listen to that and send them feedback. But if it's something slapped together, a little bit shoddy, they don't really care, I'll just move on. So I think it's really important about the approach as well. So make a good contact, approach it well, and try and keep them in your good books and stay in touch. And you'll probably end up working together one day. That's how it's normally happened for me.
What catches your eye in an email, though? Covering letter or email? What catches your eye?
So this is a bit of an ego thing, but if they say something they've loved in the show, then I'll actually believe that they've listened. Because believe it or not, a lot of work experience come in and I'll say, what's your favourite show? And don't say The Breakfast Show, because that's everybody's go-to. They're like, oh, I love Capital Breakfast. Don't tell me that. Tell me another show and tell me what you love on that show. And that's how I know that they've really committed to listening to that station and they actually believe that they want to be there and that they're committed to presenting themselves on that station. So I think if you catch their eye with something that has a personal connection to them and something they can relate to, or something that makes them feel quite important, that's usually a good way, making them feel good.
Good. And have you had any kind of tricky moments where you've been put on the spot on the radio? And if so, what was it and how did you deal with it?
Yeah, I mean, luckily, I think the tricky moments have always been pre-recorded. It's normally with a guest who's tired, hungover, doesn't want to be there, all of the above. And it's down to me to get the best out of them, which is sometimes really, really hard or near to impossible. But it is my job, so I've got to do my best. But luckily, we can cut all that down and make it sound amazing and cut out all the middle bit. But there are moments. I think in terms of live, I've been really lucky. I've not had any terrible moments so far. I mean, tomorrow could be the day now. You never know.
Do you think about it? Do you think, oh, what if this happened? Or
not really. No. Yeah. And people always say, how do you not swear? Or you just don't. You're in that environment and you're switched on and you're focused on that job, and it just should come very naturally, really.
A question here. Your days are very busy, so what do you do to relax?
Yeah, relaxing it's taken me a while to work out, actually, and I've really struggled in the past. It's affected relationships, where I just couldn't switch off from my job, and I would always think about it. I would leave and think about the show the next day. I'd be on my phone constantly checking social media and just always feeling like I needed to be present and on social media and updating people. And then, it took a lot for me to realize, actually, this is so unhealthy and detrimental to my mental health that I need to just step back, and it's okay to switch off. Nobody wants to see me 24/7. If I don't put an Instagram story up that afternoon, that is okay. Nobody's going to notice. So I think stepping away from my phone is really, really important. Exercising completely changed everything. When I was at LV, I hated PE with a passion. I would do everything I could to get out of PE. I always think if my PE teachers could see me now, they would not believe it, because I really love exercising. And just like watching TV and reading, I've got into reading recently as well. So anything that can just distract you from a screen, I think is really, really important.
It's hard though, isn't it?
It's
really
super
hard not to grab that phone.
Yeah. Kind of, you owe yourself the time away from it.
Yeah, that's really good advice, especially with our kids now on learning online in lockdown. Yeah. It's hard for them. That is really good advice. So we've got a question here. Who was the most difficult celebrity you've interviewed, if you are allowed to name him?
Oh yeah, I'd love to name and shame. If only I could think. Oh, there are so many people. There are so many people. The thing is, you can hear stories about someone and you can get a totally different version of them that day, because maybe one day they've had that person on a hangover and the next day you've had that person fresh, and that can really change everything about that guest. I can't. Okay, no, I'm not going to say. Actually, I'm not going to say. No, I'm not going to say.
No, we appreciate that one. I know it's a difficult
there
position.
There are moments. Where what are you doing here?
Another one here. So said, "Hi Will, how did you get into TV writing and program development? It sounds really hard. Did you have any training or mentoring?"
No, absolutely not. Basically, the reason I started writing for TV is because I couldn't get onto TV. So I thought, right, well, if I'm not getting through the auditions, if I'm not getting the auditions in the first place, how do I get onto TV? I'll write myself in. I will write an amazing idea that a commissioner can't refuse, and they'll have to take the whole package where it's me and the show. So that's why I started writing, and I would watch a lot of the channel that I was pitching for. So for example, ITV2, I would watch all of their shows, work out what the gap was, what are they missing, what do they love, and try and combine those things, what they're missing, what they love, what they need, and then just start developing shows from there, and always put myself down as the host of it, with the hope that I would get myself onto TV. And I've told a commissioner that, and he was like, that's absolutely how you should do it. You see the gap, write yourself in, because nobody's going to give you the chance. You can't just sit there thinking, I'll be on TV one day. You've actually got to be proactive and do something about it. It's not going to come to you.
Yeah, no, well done. And all the staff that I've spoken to said they will remember you as being really smiley and happy.
Really?
And cheeky comes into it as well, but in a nice way.
Yeah,
and you always were, and you still are. It's almost like you could turn the clock back 13 years. You haven't really changed.
Oh, I wish I could.
Right, we've got another.
Good things.
Here's another one now, because we've actually said to the children, the staff this afternoon, if they wanted to come off their lessons and watch this live and put a question in, they can. So we've got a Year 11 chemistry set here. They're listening to you live this afternoon, and says, have you got any advice to them? They're lacking a bit of motivation at the moment due to the lockdown exam. Any advice you'd give that, you were 16 once doing that. How would you feel if you were in that situation, and what would you do?
Yeah, I can only imagine how tough that is. I was saying this to my friend the other day. I really, really feel for everybody who is 16 at the moment. I think that's a horrific age to be stuck in this lockdown, when you just want to crack on with GCSEs and get through the summer and get on with your life as an adult. But I think, as everybody's been saying, it is going to come to an end, and we just have to sort of hold on to that belief that there is a brighter time coming, and your future isn't on hold just because life seems to be at the moment. You still have so much time to do what you want to go and do. Because I think back to 16-year-old me trying to rush through life. And I realized when someone told me that 16 is really young, you've got so much of your life ahead of you. So it's not going to have too much of an effect on your adult life, your young adult life. You're going to be all right. It's going to work out in the end.
Are there any shows that you'd like to be on, like Celebrity Get Me Out of Here or Strictly or something like that? Have you got any kind of aspirations there?
You're asking me that because I told you yesterday.
You should have let on that.
I don't want to say. Yeah. The answer, one of those shows would be great.
Yeah. Oh, we're rooting for you, and we'll bang the door down for you if we can. All right, there's another one. So is there a celebrity which you would like to interview, and why?
Is there a celebrity I'd like to interview? Yeah. I'd like to say I've interviewed Beyonce, just because she seems the biggest in the world. And I honestly feel like I've spoken to almost everybody apart from her husband, Rihanna as well, and Kanye West. There's 4 people I really want to tick off. But apart from that, I've been really lucky I've spoken to pretty much everybody and met almost everybody now, which is nice.
It's just fantastic. And we're having lots of lovely messages about the responses and meeting you and your advice today, Will. So thank you so much for coming back to LVS. I hope we do see you soon, and love and best wishes to your family as well. And we want to see you on TV, so we're rooting for you. We're sending loads of positive thoughts to you. You're such an inspiration to us, Will. Thank you.
And when everything's back up open again, I really want to come back and visit in real life.
You're most welcome at any time.
Thanks.
Okay, have a lovely day. See you soon.
Bye.
Take care. Bye-bye. So thank you to Will. It's coming up to half term now, and then we resume with Perspectives 19 when we come back with the WOW group and more details to follow. So have a lovely half term, everybody. Look forward to seeing you then. Bye bye.